In the previous video, we've seen why a return has to be filed and who is supposed to file return, what are the types of returns, what are the types of taxpayers. In this video, we'll check out the conditions before a taxpayer could think of filing returns. There are very simple conditions, very logical ones in fact. We've divided these conditions into two broad categories. One, the conditions before filing return, and two, the conditions relating to the process of filing returns. These are the two broad categories that we found out after going through all these conditions. The first one, conditions before filing return. There are two conditions that the taxpayer has to meet. One, that he has to pay the self-assessed tax as per return. He has to make that payment to the government before he can go and submit the return for that period. Whatever tax he's mentioning in the return as self-assessed, he'll have to go and pay. The second, any return cannot be submitted if the return of the previous period has not been filed. Therefore, before filing a return for a particular period, the taxpayer has to go and file all the previous period's return. If a taxpayer is trying to submit the return for December, then he'll have to first file the returns up till November. Only then he can file the return for December. Those are the two conditions before filing any particular return. Coming to the second category, relating to the process of filing return. These are very important conditions. The first of these is that the return is to be filed online. The GST portal will have the facility to file return. There would also be a facility to prepare the returns offline and then upload it onto the online portal. But the return has to be filed online itself. That's first of the conditions relating to process of filing return. The second is that all of these returns have a due date. They have to be filed within the due date in order to avoid any penalty or interest relating to late filing of returns. We'll discuss the due dates of each of the returns as and when we discuss the details required to be filed under each return. There are two more conditions relating to the process. They are both related to changes, revision in information, and they are kind of important. The first of these two is that no revision of returns is allowed. Any change to information in one return will have to be filed in the next returns. Whenever you identify that the information filed in a previous return is wrong, you will have to amend it in the current period return. The period you found out that the information is wrong, you cannot go back and file a revised return for that particular period. Suppose you found out that the information filed for September is wrong. You found this out in December. Then in the return of December, you will have to show the change, what was wrong. You cannot go and file a revised return for September. That is one important point to keep in mind. The second is that after a transaction is completed, after you've supplied, received invoice, time of supply is done, taxes paid, everything, after the transaction is completed, no revision of invoices is allowed. Any changes post transaction has to be done through debit note or credit note, and the details of each of these changes via the debit note or credit note will have to be given in the return. We'll discuss in detail about these two documents while we discuss GSTR 2. So these are the conditions relating to process of filing, and that's all the conditions that you'll have to keep in mind. These two categories that we formed will help you remember all these conditions before filing return and during the process of filing return. In the next video, we'll check out the returns of normal registered taxpayer 1, 2, 3 and 9.